that we always do, which is we get to talk about the things that absolutely no one else is going to talk about because they are controlled by Riot. And that, of course, is the latest with Hanwha Life and Clid. So Clid has been accused, I'm going to try and get my language correct here, of sending sexually harassing messages to women via KakaoTalk, which is the messaging app that everybody in Korea uses. And a lot of these have now been posted online by these individuals on Twitter. Looks like there's a couple of different individuals. The journalists in South Korea are picking up on this. Again, none of this is confirmed at this point in time, but Clid was in fact benched for a substitute jungler in Grizzly in their match versus D+ Kia, which they lost last night. I have not seen these matches yet, obviously, because we are recording this at 8 a.m. So I have just woken up and haven't had a chance to review those games yet. But this is an instance that's probably really going to affect Hanwha, and the team is still doing their own investigation. Haven't heard anything, of course, from LCK, but they have a ghost commissioner, so don't expect to hear anything at any point in time from them. And yeah, it seems like it's pretty serious with the Korean community.
I mean, the real problem with this whole topic is we should actually give you some cultural background here, which is one, because they are like a Confucian society where it's all about face, it's about honor and what is the public perception of who you are and what you represent, etc. That's the reason why they're coming down on this topic like harder than a ton of bricks, like ridiculously hard. Even though you'll notice, as far as I can tell from what I was reading translated, Monty, nobody has accused this person of like raping someone or even meeting the people and doing anything. It's essentially just the idea he sent inappropriate messages to fans, presumably female fans. And then the other thing is, this is also why it's difficult to talk about a story where the language it's in is in a different language and I have to rely on translations and what news leaks out. Like, guess what? I'm not scouring DC Inside or Foremost or whatever website they're all on over there in Korea, so I don't technically know the full story. So from the little I've seen, I would just say this. There's two things. One is culturally in Korea, even though they are absolutely a work hard, play hard culture, and spoiler, there are a bazillion businessmen going to bathhouses and all sorts of things, and high-class celebrities, people like, in fact, I'd even say, this is why we can talk about this topic and other people can't, I'd even say that's a fucked up sort of like extrusion of how extreme the work culture is and how extreme the face culture is. It's more like, instead of being like Amsterdam and just being like the red light district, which technically they do have in Busan, they have certain red lights around areas around the beach, I noticed, but in theory they don't publicize it, right? What you do there is you work hard, you're a businessman. If you choose to go and do something like that, it's more like, you know, a place that you go to, it's like an unmarked building, you make an arrangement. In theory they're just going to like wash you and it's going to be like a spa thing, but the point is everyone knows what's going on there basically. But the point I'm getting to is, just because people are doing it does not mean it is publicly accepted or anyone will admit to it. So to me, you already see they have a very strict hierarchy of rules within Korea anyway. So on this main topic, as far as I can tell, I can't know all the messages. Some of it, quite frankly, just looked like sexting, fair, as in like what you would expect if pro players and fans interact with each other, and then some of them, men and women, have the crossover where they start getting a bit naughty. The problem with that for me always is, one, you have to know what the whole log is. Like, is the guy just saying some weird shit out of nowhere, and before that it's just sort of like, hey, I'm your fan or whatever? That's an issue for me. Then there's the whole thing that, like, I do think it's really dirty if the person who themselves was on the other side of it was actually into it or encouraging it, but then later they sort of retract. Like the idea, first of all, you don't need consent as far as I can talk to someone like that, but the idea you can retract it later seems a bit okay. But then the last thing I will say, and this is the most important thing to listen to if you are a young player in esports, is this is what you call an asymmetric relationship. And you better learn what that fucking term means immediately, because you are going to get brutalized. So the problem is this: that person is not the same as you. They are not going to be treated the same as you. And they definitely have no professional expectations as accompanied with what they're messaging you. So even if in that scenario, it seems like, well, they were messaging me that way, I replied to them, they sexed it up a bit, I got a bit cheeky. It doesn't matter. They're not a pro player. So they're not going to be punished. They're not going to be shamed. Well, I don't know, potentially, I guess, some fans could be horrible to them. In theory, they don't have as much to lose. So in that scenario, pro players have got to learn. Even though, yes, take being a pro player out of it. Maybe you're a 19-year-old player. Clid's much older, but I'm just giving a random example here. Maybe that's a 19-year-old girl. To you, it might just seem like what's good for the goose is good for the gander. But it's a different set of circumstances. And I'd also just say, generally, Like, you have to just realize, like I say, the person, if you're being honest with yourself, the main reason they contacted you was because they're a fan of yours in some way. So that already was lurking in the background. What is it? It's not as simple as just being like, well, I'm 19, they're 19. Not really. Like, the main reason they reached out to you is because you in some way are a figure of higher esteem in their mind, or the fact that you're a pro is what's making you cool, you're competent or something. So I think it's a really complicated topic. As far as I can tell, it doesn't look great from the Clid side. It looks like he said either embarrassing stuff, or maybe he was being a little bit sexually provocative. It doesn't seem like a massive scandal to me, but again, I understand the cultural sort of lay of the land, as it were. It doesn't surprise me that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just depends on what other information comes out from this. I think on its face right now, the thing is, you just don't know how deep the rabbit hole goes, right? And allegedly, one of the two women that has come forward was a minor at the time.
That's like a big problem as well.
Yeah,
You also don't know all these people are. That's why I would, in general, say don't message anyone like
right.
that.
And, like, are there pictures that are being exchanged here, which are obviously, potentially illegal? Did this ever get into real life? And so it could be the tip of the iceberg. Like, we just don't know what the effect of this is. And like, that is, we just have to wait for more information to come out and for them to actually talk to these people and do some sort of investigation as to whether it went beyond what we have seen translated and what the context of that is. But in the meantime, it's obviously just going to affect Clid's ability to play the game, which, if you're a Hanwha fan, a lot of people, might like the fact that Clid is gone, but Clid was one of the major voices and shot callers within this roster. Sure. And even though his individual play was kind of lackluster this year, and he did make quite a few misplays, you have to say. He had a lot of hints. Is a substitute jungler this late in the year going to be able to revive their chances, especially one that may not have significant experience? Are they going to sign a new, more veteran jungler? Obviously, we talked about Dread like a million times, just sitting out there doing nothing as far as we can tell right now. Or are they just going to take, kind of throw in the towel on the season and take an amateur jungler and just see what happens with Grizzly in that position? But yeah, it is looks like quite the scandal that is unfolding right now, and it's not, I think, unprecedented. People have brought up the fact that players like Aiming have been in similar situations in the past years ago. So, yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait for the team and the league to make some sort of decisions over this, and hopefully they can get to the bottom of it quickly. But for those of you guys who are wondering, that's what's going on. It is purely from a competitive perspective, unfortunate, because right now on the whole in the LCK, it is looking really kind of top heavy, the league. And this was a team that might have been able to make it to Worlds and probably will not. Probably will not, based on those circumstances. I wouldn't even necessarily say they had an outside chance, really, because with the state of play right now and 4 teams going, it's kind of like between them and D plus Kia. So it's like 50% chance, really, unless some miracle happens with like Kwangdong or Live Sandbox, which
the biggest winner from this is Damwon, without a doubt. They just made their chances of going so much better. Whereas, like, I would have still been a bit nervous if they'd have been in that last BO5 to make it there, That'd have been clenched a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Hanwha did better in the playoffs in spring than we expected them to do. So they did step up, I guess, a little bit, when it matters. They did beat D plus 3-1 and eliminate them. So had that playoff bracket, been there at the time, they would have made top. I mean, they did make top 4 in spring, even though they were the 5th seed to D plus's 4th seed at the time. So, yeah, I mean, it is probably going to, make LCK rather predictable, I would say, going forward, especially because D plus did in fact take that win over Hanwha this morning, 2-0. So
if you're a fan of Viper, it's just been suffering for like a whole fucking year now. Like, please, just get him on a better team. Get on a better team. He's the new trophy. Bad teammate choice.
Well, he did this to himself. Like, he did sign a contract knowing that he was going to be playing with all of these players. Right.
Probably so high off all the fucking getting back to come back to Korea money. He won Worlds a while back. So he's like, yeah, whatever, I'll stick with fucking year. You fucked up, homie. You fucked up.
I mean,
all I'm saying is this. Think about it logically. There's a world where maybe he could have been on Damwon, mate. Imagine that lineup. If he was in Deft spot on Damwon, that'd be fucking banging.
I mean, Deft is doing well. I don't know if that's the core problem with D+, but I mean, he also could have been. I mean, the Gumayushi stands are going to come after me, but he could have been on T1 as well. He could have been on KT.
Stands. Do you know that thing where they had like one trophy ever? Like, what are we fucking talking about here? Like, I don't get it, mate. If you at what point in time does he ever get blame? I don't get it, mate. Everyone's been treating Gumayushi like who's the best ADC in the world for like 3 years now. It's what mental. What?
It's because T1 has K-popified themselves, where that's the kind of branding that the team has put the players into, and the players have opted into themselves. So now everybody thinks they must protect the precious T1 players from everything. It's very annoying. It's very annoying.
The one thing I do find weird though is obviously he's Innovation's brother, but Innovation was mega nerdy looking. Gumayushi is like a fucking male model, mate. It's ridiculous. Have you seen that jawline? He looks fucking fire, mate. He must be one of those like twins type scenarios, like the Arnold Schwarzenegger, Danny DeVito movie. I know which way all the genetics went. All the clutch gene went to Innovation. All the looks went to fucking Gumayushi. There you go. Figure it out for you.
Guess who's made more money in his career, Thorin?
There you go.
It's Gumayushi, because he was in a bigger game. His brother Innovation was there before the big money came into esports. So.
Yeah, but he did it all on his own, mate. The other guy was getting fucking carried. Innovation just had to win. There's only me here. Oh, I've got to just win it all, have I, right? 70% win rate across the board. That'll just be me then, being a god. Great. See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.